Around 11 p.m. late at night, Xi Jinping suddenly took the initiative to call Donald Trump. This is a type of diplomatic move that Chinese Communist Party leaders rarely adopt and can be called quite unusual, because the Taiwan issue has pressured Beijing into making the first move. After the call was connected, the one who led the conversation was not Xi Jinping but Trump. He shifted the focus to Ukraine, fentanyl, and U.S.China trade. Even more dramatic, less than 24 hours later, Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi also received a call from Trump, and the leaders of the three countries took turns exchanging information on the highly sensitive Taiwan Strait issue. Trump firmly backed Takaichi, telling her that she could call me anytime if anything happens, meaning, "Don't be afraid, America is standing right beside you." If Xi Jinping knew this, he would surely be furious. Calling Trump late at night was already a big loss of face, yet on Trump's side, he did not say a single word about Taiwan and instead talked at length about peace in Ukraine, fentanyl, and American soybeans. Isn't that trying to break up my friendship with Putin? Truly a case of trying to steal a chicken and losing the rice instead. Behind this 24-hour diplomatic storm lies the CCP's strategic anxiety. In order to prevent Putin from moving closer to Trump, the CCP has strengthened its energy cooperation with Russia. In this so-called cooperation, Beijing is raking in huge profits while Putin's money bag is shrinking by the day. This is precisely what she likes to tout as mutual benefit and win-win. Regarding Xi Jinping's sudden phone call with U.S. President Trump on the evening of the 24th, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said on November 25, "As far as I know, this call was initiated by the U.S. side. The atmosphere of the call was positive, friendly, and constructive. The two heads of state communicated on issues of common concern, which is very important for the stable development of China-U.S. relations." However, according to reports from U.S. media outlets The Wall Street Journal and The New York Times, the call was initiated by Xi Jinping. The Wall Street Journal reported that Xi Jinping took the initiative on Monday, November 24, to call U.S. President Trump. Although Taiwan was Xi's primary concern, Trump shifted the topic to Ukraine. The article's headline also highlighted the word rare. The Taiwan and Ukraine issues are both sensitive topics in China-U.S. relations, but when the leaders of the two countries discuss them, they seldom link the two together. Sources in Beijing say that this call, initiated by Xi, made top-level communication into a rare diplomatic goodwill gesture from the CCP. Although Xi's real concern in this call was Taiwan, Trump's post that day, the 24th, on social media mentioned neither the Taiwan issue nor the diplomatic crisis between Beijing and Tokyo. Instead, the war in Ukraine, fentanyl, and soybeans were at the center of Trump's focus. Trump said he had accepted Xi's invitation and would visit Beijing in April next year, while Xi would visit the United States later next year. Trump wrote, "Our relationship with China is extremely strong." For Xi, Trump is a businessman turned president and, unlike Biden, is unwilling to openly reveal his bottom line on Taiwan. Trump only emphasized that Xi had promised not to invade Taiwan during Trump's term, but Beijing has remained non-committal about this supposed promise. Evan Medeiros, a former senior national security official in the Obama administration and now a professor at Georgetown University, said, "Xi's decision to initiate the call is highly unusual. It underscores that he believes he has an opportunity to shape Trump's views. Taiwan policy is almost certainly at the center of Xi's thinking. This move brings the United States closer to China's vision for Taiwan's future." In recent decades, the only precedent of a CCP party chief proactively contacting a U.S. president was after September 11, 2001. At that time, CCP leader Jiang Zemin sent a message of condolence to President George W. Bush after the terrorist attacks in the United States, and the two spoke the next day. According to the CCP's official narrative, that call was also initiated at the request of the U.S. president. In the call on the 24th, though Xi tried hard to focus on the Taiwan issue, Trump himself brought up Ukraine. According to CCP state media, Xi stressed that China supports all efforts conducive to peace. On this point, Yun Sun, director of the China program at the Stimson Center, a think tank in Washington, said, "The CCP is closely following the Ukraine peace negotiations and realizes the need to step up its involvement." The New York Times also reported that Xi initiating a call to Trump was out of the ordinary. In a social media post that afternoon, Trump said it was a very good call and that they talked mainly about Ukraine, fentanyl, and China's purchase of agricultural products. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters outside the White House on November 24 that President Trump spoke with Xi for about an hour. The two discussed Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but the main focus was on the trade deal we are negotiating with China. In both Trump's and Leavitt's summaries of the call, Taiwan was not mentioned at all, but this was precisely the part that CCP state media emphasized. In November, Japan's new Prime Minister Sonai Takaichi stated in Parliament that if the CCP tried to blockade or invade Taiwan, Japan might use force to intervene. This echoed former President Biden's four public commitments that U.S. forces would help defend against a CCP invasion of Taiwan. Trump, however, has never made a clear statement on what the United States would do if the CCP tried to invade Taiwan by force. The New York Times report argued that Xi Jinping undoubtedly noticed this. In the phone call, he apparently tried to pull the U.S. president closer to Beijing's position and push Washington to rein in Tokyo. Craig Singleton, senior China fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, said, "Beijing is unsettled by Japan's assertiveness. Taiwan's security is becoming the core interest of a regional alliance, a shared interest of the region, forming a lips and teeth relationship. Any blockade or attack by the CCP against Taiwan will trigger a chain reaction, tugging one hair and moving the whole body. Therefore, Xi Jinping, by directly pressuring Trump, is trying to strengthen Beijing's preferred narrative in Washington before this alliance solidifies." Trump spoke separately with Xi and Takaichi in the span of a single day. According to BBC Chinese, this week is destined to be unusual. On Monday, in less than 24 hours, hotline calls crossed the Pacific one after another as the leaders of China, the United States, and Japan held 2 rounds of bilateral talks in a very short period of time. Less than 24 hours after Xi's call with Trump, Japanese Prime Minister Sonai Takaichi also spoke with Trump on the morning of November 25, Beijing time. Takaichi told reporters, President Trump briefly explained the current state of U.S.China relations. She said the call was proposed by Trump, and added, "President Trump also said that he and I are very good friends and that he is happy to take my call at any time." BBC cited analysis that the Xi-Trump call reflects an invisible tug-of-war between Beijing and Tokyo over Taiwan. Beijing is trying to emphasize the CCP stance to the United States and hopes Washington will pressure Japan. This may be a move Beijing made after careful consideration. Stephen Nagy, a professor in the Department of International Politics at International Christian University, ICU, in Japan, believes that the CCP hopes Trump will pressure Tokyo, but this seems unlikely. It is more probable that Xi's move is messaging aimed at the domestic audience to steady the ship, showing that he dares to confront Japanese militarism while also being able to negotiate with the United States. Some reports say the Xi-Trump call took place around 11 p.m. Monday Beijing time. Song Wendy, a non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council, a Washington think tank, explained that the late-night call appears to reflect Beijing's anxiety. And as a businessman, Trump is unlikely to grant the CCP many concessions. Dylan Low, an associate professor at Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, believes that the call between Xi and Trump, in addition to following up on key details from their earlier meeting in South Korea, mainly aimed to shape a narrative framework for Trump, reminding the United States not to lean too far toward its Japanese ally. CCP state media claim that Xi explained China's stance and principles on the Taiwan issue during the call and stressed that Taiwan's return to China is an important part of the post-war international order. On the afternoon of the 25th, Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs refuted Xi's remarks, saying that the Chinese mainland is deliberately misinterpreting wartime documents such as the Cairo Declaration, the Potsdam Proclamation, and the San Francisco Treaty, none of which determine Taiwan's final political status. Chisako Masuwa, a professor at Kyushu University in Japan, wrote in a column for Nikkei that there have been many examples in the past of the CCP launching diplomatic attacks on Japan, but the novelty of this episode lies in the involvement of the United Nations. She said that in recent years, the CCP has emphasized the United Nations' victory in World War II and claims that the UN grants special status to the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, arguing that the world should return to the starting point of the post-war order. The Xi regime may be launching a new historical narrative war against the world, and I worry that President Trump might fall into this trap. Some analyses say that Xi seems to hope, through Trump, to get Tokyo to pull back from its tough stance on Taiwan's defense, or at least to express less support. Trump firmly backs Sonai Takaichi, "Call me anytime if anything happens." According to a Reuters report from Tokyo, Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi said on November 25 that in their first phone call, President Trump told her, "Call me anytime if anything happens." This call was the first direct communication between the Japanese and U.S. leaders after a diplomatic dispute broke out between Japan and the CCP over the Taiwan Strait issue. Until this call with Takaichi, Trump had not publicly commented on the dispute between Japan, America's key security ally, and the CCP. Analysts pointed out that this silence might have made some officials in Tokyo uneasy. Takaichi revealed that Trump briefed her on the latest status of U.S.-China relations, including the content of his call with Xi on Monday. A Japanese government official familiar with the call said Tokyo felt reassured that Trump arranged the call with Takaichi so quickly after speaking with Xi. Sino-Japanese tensions continue to escalate. On November 24, the CCP criticized Japan's plan to deploy medium-range surface-to-air missiles on Yonaguni Island, Japan's island closest to Taiwan, saying it creates regional tensions and provokes military confrontation. On the same day, Japan scrambled fighter jets in response to a Chinese drone flying between China and Yonaguni. So far, Sanai Takaichi has refused Beijing's demand that she retract her remarks about Taiwan. Tokyo, however, says it is willing to hold dialogue with Beijing at all levels to ease tensions. On November 25, Japan's vice foreign minister met with the CCP's ambassador to Japan to discuss outstanding issues between the two countries and follow-up measures. Although Trump has not directly intervened in the Sino-Japanese dispute over the Taiwan Strait, U.S. Ambassador to Japan Rahm Emanuel has said the United States supports Japan in responding to CCP coercion. Some officials in Tokyo have long worried that Trump might weaken U.S. support for Taiwan in order to clinch a trade deal with China, which could embolden Beijing and raise the risk of conflict in East Asia. Taiwan, returning to China is not an option. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Minoru Kihara believes that stable U.S.-China relations are extremely important to the international community, including Japan. He refused to comment on Xi's statements about Taiwan. The waters around Taiwan are Japan's lifeline for trade and energy transport. Encouraged by the United States, Japan in recent years has launched a historic buildup of its military capabilities to respond to China's growing power and assertiveness in the region. At the same time, Taiwanese Premier Cho Young-tai said on November 25 that for Taiwan's 23 million people, returning to China is absolutely not an option. Trump takes the initiative and steers the topic toward peace in Ukraine. According to Trump's posts, he focused in the call on U.S.-China trade and the Ukraine issue. As peace talks between Washington and Kiev have progressed in recent days, Trump is trying to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to an end. However, while Xi says that China supports all efforts conducive to peace, his actual actions are exactly the opposite. Sino-Russian energy cooperation, Putin's money bag is deflating. According to CCP state media Xinhua, the 7th China-Russia Energy Business Forum was held in Beijing on November 25. CCP leader Xi Jinping personally sent a congratulatory letter, calling China-Russia energy cooperation a model of mutually beneficial cooperation. Xi emphasized that China is willing to work with Russia to continue strengthening their comprehensive partnership in the energy sector, and so on. On the same day, Russian President Vladimir Putin also sent a congratulatory letter to the 7th China-Russia Energy Business Forum. In his letter, Putin said that the comprehensive strategic partnership of coordination between Russia and China is constantly moving forward, and that, without a doubt, one of the key areas of our pragmatic cooperation is energy. Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak revealed at the forum that Russia is discussing with its Chinese partners the possibility of increasing oil exports to China. He expressed appreciation for China's constructive attitude in the face of sanctions against Russia. He also said that Russia and China are expanding cooperation in supplying oil and gas equipment and services, and that long-term contracts between Chinese companies and major Russian oil enterprises at fair market prices have become a reliable foundation for China's energy security. Novak further mentioned that exports of coal and processed coal products from Russia to China are expected to increase to more than 100 million tons per year, and that Russia plans to raise the share of yuan and ruble settlement in trade with China. This will be an important step in strengthening trade relations between the two countries. After the Russia-Ukraine war broke out and Western sanctions against Russia were launched, Russia became China's top oil supplier, accounting for about 20% of China's imports, according to Rosneft CEO Igor Sekin. Because buying Russian oil is more cost-effective than importing from the Middle East, China has gained total economic benefits of up to $20 billion since 2022. The CCP is the regime that has benefited most from the Russia-Ukraine war. It not only profits handsomely from Russia under Western sanctions, but more importantly, Russia's invasion has diverted a large portion of U.S. attention, easing pressure on the CCP. Therefore, the CCP is very happy to see the war continue and to deepen Russia's dependence on China. On Putin's side, the war is emptying out Russia's money bag. Reuters estimated on November 24 that Russia's state oil and gas revenues in November may plunge by 35% year-on-year, dropping to only 520 billion rubles. The fatal problem is that while global oil prices are falling, the ruble is strengthening, which means Russia's oil is sold cheaper and earns even less. From January to November of this year, the taxable price for Russian crude fell from $68.30 per barrel in the same period in 2024 to $57.30 per barrel. With oil prices falling and each barrel sold for less than before, Russia's tax revenues are naturally shrinking. The ruble has risen from 91.7 to the dollar to 81.1 to the dollar. A stronger ruble is good news for ordinary people, but for Russia's finances, which rely heavily on energy export revenues, it means that the same amount of dollars now converts into fewer rubles. In addition, as the United States continues to expand its sanctions, Russia is forced to use a more secretive and costly shadow fleet to sell oil by detours, which has clearly reduced profit margins. This causes Russia's international energy income to keep shrinking and its fiscal pressure to grow steadily. The CCP is precisely using these international sanctions as an opportunity to profit from Russian energy. That is why Xi Jinping so enthusiastically says that China-Russia energy cooperation is a model of mutual benefit. With one phrase, mutual benefit and cooperation, he is trying to tightly bind Putin's hands and feet, making it hard for him to move closer to Trump. In this way, she can delay Trump's peace plans and hinder the implementation of Trump's reverse Nixon strategy of uniting with Russia to counter the CCP.